Well, welcome to the 700 Club. President Trump met with dozens of victims of religious persecution, and in the Oval Office, he heard their stories and offered them his support.
The president has made religious freedom a priority of his administration, and his meetings with the victims is just one demonstration of that commitment. CBN Washington reporter Jenna Browder has more.
It was an extraordinary and moving scene in the Oval Office as President Trump listened to people from around the world who have been persecuted for their faith.
I'm Esther from Nigeria. I do 3 years in Sambisa. I escaped from Boko Haram.
This is Nadia, is a Nobel Peace Prize winner.
I'm from Iraq, and I cannot say my family is there in the jail because when ISIS attacked us, no one protected us. After 2003, we started to disappear from our area, from our homeland. When ISIS attacked us in 2014, they killed 6 of my brothers. They killed my mom.
The president even insisting he had time to hear more stories despite his schedule.
I know the president has to get on, so I want to, everybody.
We can take a couple of minutes.
Can you? Okay, good.
My family are being persecuted in Iran. Iranian people are with you. The majority of Iranian people...
Explain what is happening in Iran.
My parents are pastors. They're Christian pastors. They've been arrested, all my family, my father, my mother, and my brother. They are free on bail, awaiting their trial and long sentences.
They've been invited, along with thousands of others, to tell their stories and take part in the Trump administration's initiative to protect and promote religious freedom.
You have over 16 countries represented here. You have approximately 27 people, but I was in the room yesterday with thousands, and we had thousands that could not get in. So we thank you, President, for being the leader, the courageous leader to stand up not only in our nation, but countries all around for all faith of all people, that we should have the practice and the right to practice our religion.
Pastor Paula White referring to the second ministerial on international religious freedom, hosted by the administration this week. The State Department says 80% of people worldwide live in a religiously restricted environment.
All people from every place on the globe must be permitted to practice their faith openly in their homes, in their places of worship, in the public square, and believe what they want to believe.
And Secretary Pompeo will be addressing the ministerial again today, along with Vice President Pence, who's also an outspoken advocate for religious freedom. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Well, it's one of the fundamentals of a democratic society. You have the freedom of religion, the freedom of conscience, the freedom of belief, the freedom of thought. And to see the president saying, I want to hear your story. I want to hear what you have been through. And how can we stop this? How can we create a world where you can have the freedom of belief? I find it wonderful. Kudos to the administration. Kudos to Brownback, the Secretary, the Ambassador for Religious Freedom, and to the entire State Department for taking this on. It's a very hard thing to accomplish, but if you don't ever even begin and you never publicize it, you're never going to see it through. We've taken a big step forward here, and congratulations to all involved. In other news, Iran is once again causing problems in the Persian Gulf. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Thanks, Gordon. Iran has seized a foreign tanker carrying more than 250,000 gallons of oil in the Persian Gulf. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard claims the tanker was smuggling oil. The news is sending oil prices higher over fears the regime will disrupt shipping. 20% of the world's oil supply comes through the Gulf. All this as the U.S. is sending hundreds of troops to Saudi Arabia. A New York Times report cites Defense Department officials who confirmed about 500 soldiers will be deployed to the country as part of the Trump administration's response to growing tensions with Iran. Well, the House has said here at home, the House of Representatives has set aside a resolution by Texas Congressman Al Green to bring articles of impeachment against the president. 137 Democrats joined Republicans and an independent to kill the proposal. 95 Democrats voted in favor. The attempt came after the Democrat-controlled House censured the president for his remarks aimed at 4 Democratic congresswomen. 2 of them, Representatives Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, called for impeachment proceedings. But House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and other Democratic leaders oppose impeachment because the country does not support it. The Northeast is bracing for a heat wave. Temperatures are expected to rise dangerously high in the coming days, hitting near or above 100 degrees this weekend. Of course, the high humidity levels will make it feel even hotter. Philadelphia and New York already declaring emergencies and activating cooling centers throughout those cities. The Midwest will experience similar high temperatures. The Pentagon is sending 2,000 National Guard troops to the southern border. They'll assist customs and border officers at detention facilities and provide enforcement and security along the border. It's aimed at dealing with the unprecedented flow of migrants. Heather Sells recently spent the day with Border Patrol agents in El Paso to see how they're dealing with a crisis.
How bad has it been at the border this year? By the end of June in El Paso, Border Patrol agents had apprehended a record number of families, up by 1,700% over 2018.
This has been chaotic since around October in El Paso. El Paso's never seen this type of numbers in the last decade.
A steady stream of parents and children arrived during our day with Border Patrol, many close to tears as they surrendered and told stories of extreme violence, poverty, and corruption.
We don't know what else to do.
This surge of desperate families has transformed the work of Border Patrol agents. Their mission now is more humanitarian than ever.
We have been the primary caretakers, diapers, making bottles, administering first aid.
During our visit in June, Border Patrol refused to show us or other media at the time the inside of its processing facilities. But what we saw and heard made it clear. The number of migrants they've been receiving has simply overwhelmed agents.
We do work a 10-hour day. That's our normal shift. But sometimes towards the end of your shift, you might encounter a large group of 300 people, and you're by yourself, so you have to stay out there.
At places like this, where the wall ends between ports of entry, buses have literally dropped off large groups seeking asylum.
Hundreds of people will just be unloaded. They would simply just walk across.
The problem with such drop-offs, says Border Patrol, is that they literally take agents away from the border.
There's normally 2 agents along this stretch of the border, but right now there's none. They've both been diverted to care for the wave that's coming over.
We know that these cartels are watching us. We know that they're exploiting us. It's a very coordinated effort that they use. They'll send in a large group, knowing it's going to take a lot of our resources.
Traffickers boldly encourage those who want to sneak across and not surrender to do so in broad daylight. These 4 men took a chance in the middle of the afternoon. Alert agents found out and spent anxious minutes watching with a paramedic as the men turned back to Mexico.
If one of them would have fell down off of that 18-foot fence, more than likely it would have been broken ankles, broken bones, broken legs, skull fractures, which we have seen.
It's no secret that nationwide, Border Patrol is having a tough time filling job vacancies. For now, the president's Remain in Mexico policy and new asylum rule is giving agents somewhat of a break. But legal challenges could reverse both these policies, and Mexican cartels, no doubt, will find new ways to move people and drugs.
They don't come to the border just on their own. Everybody has to be processed by a smuggler. You don't cross a river without paying somebody.
The high business stakes combined with court obstacles mean Border Patrol agents could likely end up right where they've been, caught in the middle of a huge wave of immigration, a wave with no easy fixes. Reporting in El Paso, Heather Sells, CBN News.
Thanks, Heather. Gordon, the immigration crisis just overwhelming and taxing the system.
Well, it is overwhelming, and it's about time calling out the National Guard, and we could get to the point where you have to call out the Third Army. What do you do with this kind of wave where it's literally 100,000 people a month? And then it's completely overwhelming the centers there that are set up for processing. It's overcrowded. There are brutal conditions. We need to build more centers. We need to have more agents. It's an amazing situation where our own federal agencies need help from private NGOs in order to deal with a solution. And then you have these border agents who are just torn. What do? You don't get to have a normal workday, And then on top of it, you're being called to provide for families from your own means. And so we're seeing Border Patrol agents, their families are donating their own clothes, they're donating diapers, they're donating food in order to help these people. It's high time we step up and meet it, but it's become a political football. And on one side, you say, well, there's no crisis, there's no invasion or caravan or whatever. And once you take that position, well, then how do you untake that position? How do you admit, well, I'm wrong, and we need to work together and get something done? This has to stop. We're known as a free nation. That's why people want to come to us, and they seem to be coming to us in droves. Now we need comprehensive immigration reform, but more importantly, for the humanitarian crisis, we need to have food, we need to have shelter, we need to have provision for the people who are coming over. These brutal conditions have to stop, and they need to stop now.